He a tycoon with a secret passion for his friend's bride. She, about to get married, backs out at the altar. Amidst the chaos, Adrian sees her, and driven by her pain, kneels and declares, "Luciana, I love you. I've always loved you. Marry me." Get ready for a twist, where a secret love is revealed amidst a scandal. But passion and loyalty can heal broken hearts and prove that the truest love blossoms in the ruins. Watch this story to the end. You will be surprised by this story. If you'd like love stories, romance, subscribe to this channel, leave your comment. We post videos like this every day. Continuing. The morning sun bathed St. Patrick's Cathedral in a golden light that seemed to bless this long-awaited day. Luciana Lucy Fairbanks adjusted her veil for the 10th time in front of the ornate mirror in the bridal suite, her hands trembling slightly. At 28, she had dreamed of this moment since she was a little girl, the French lace gown her mother had saved for decades, the white flowers intertwined in her auburn hair, and Raphael, her fiancé, waiting for her at the altar. "You look beautiful, darling," murmured her mother, Mrs. Helena Fairbanks, smoothing the back of the dress with maternal care. "Raphael is a lucky man." Lucy smiled, but something weighed on her chest like a stone. In recent weeks, an inexplicable unease had consumed her. Raphael had been distant, his eyes losing their sparkle when they talked about the future, and she felt as if she were about to plunge into unknown waters. She shook her head, banishing the dark thoughts. It was just pre-wedding jitters, she tried to convince herself. Across town, Adrian Montgomery adjusted his tie in the mirror of his office on the top floor of the building that bore his name. At 37, he had built an empire in real estate development, transforming the cityscape of Manhattan with his visionary projects. His fortune was the subject of magazines, his bachelorhood a mystery that fueled speculation in elite social circles. But this morning, the most coveted man in the city felt like a condemned man walking to his execution. Raphael, his best friend since college, was marrying Lucy, the woman Adrian had silently loved for 5 long years. He had met her at an art gallery opening when she was still casually dating Raphael. He had been mesmerized by her expressive eyes, her genuine laughter, the way she talked about literature with a passion that ignited something deep in his soul. Throughout those years, he had watched from afar as their relationship deepened. He had attended dinners, group outings, always playing the role of the loyal friend, while his heart broke every time he saw Raphael touch her hand or kiss her lips. Adrian had never dared to confess his feelings. Honor and loyalty were the pillars of his character, and he would never betray his best friend's trust. "Mr. Montgomery," his assistant's voice echoed through the intercom, "the driver is waiting." Adrian took a deep breath, placing the ring he would give to Raphael in his suit pocket. As the best man, he had a duty to be present, to smile, to wish the couple happiness, even if it killed him inside. At the church, the guests filled the pews adorned with white ribbons and wildflowers. The Manhattan elite were present, CEOs, politicians, socialites, all eager to witness the union that society columns described as the wedding of the year. Raphael, elegant in his tuxedo, waited at the altar next to the priest, but his hands were sweating and his smile seemed forced. Adrian took his place as best man, discreetly observing Raphael. He knew his friend well enough to sense the tension he was trying to hide. In recent months, Raphael had mentioned doubts, had even questioned whether he was really ready for marriage. But Adrian had always encouraged him, swallowing his own pain for the sake of friendship. The wedding march began to echo through the speakers, and everyone turned to the main entrance. Lucy appeared in the doorway, radiant as a celestial vision. The dress accentuated her delicate figure. The veil floated like a cloud around her, and her eyes sparkled with an emotion that Adrian could not completely decipher. He felt his heart stop, Throughout those years, he had imagined this moment, Lucy walking toward the altar, but in his secret dreams, it was he who was waiting for her. The reality was a deep stab to his soul. Step by step, Lucy advanced down the center aisle, accompanied by her father. The guests whispered admiration, but she barely heard them. Her eyes were fixed on Raphael, looking for the certainty she needed to find. But when she finally reached the altar and looked into the groom's eyes, what she saw chilled her to the bone. There was something different there, a hesitation, an emptiness she had never noticed before. Raphael smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. At that moment, all her doubts of recent weeks crystallized into a terrifying certainty. Something was deeply wrong. The priest began the ceremony with his solemn voice, but the words seemed to echo distantly in Lucy's ears. Her heart raced, her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. She looked at Raphael again, then at the expectant crowd, and finally her eyes met Adrian's. In that intense, emotion-laden look that he was trying to hide, she saw something that shook her to her core, a deep pain, an undeclared love that pulsed like an open wound. It was as if, for the first time, she really saw him. "If anyone has any impediment to this union," declared the priest, "let them speak now or forever hold their peace." The silence was deafening, and it was in that moment of absolute silence that Lucy understood with crystal clarity. She could not go on with such a big lie. Asterisk dash 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 asterisk. The silence in the church stretched like a rope about to snap. Lucy felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, but her mind was in turmoil. The priest's words echoed in her ears as she looked at Raphael, then at Adrian, and again at the groom awaiting her answer. Lucy's voice came out as a hoarse whisper. She swallowed hard and tried again, louder this time. I can't do this." A shocked murmur rippled through the church like a wave. Raphael paled, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Lucy, what are you saying?" His voice trembled between confusion and growing anger. "I'm so sorry, Raphael. I really am, but I can't marry you." The words came out in a rush, as if she needed to expel that truth before the courage abandoned her. "Not like this, not with these doubts." Asterisk pandemonium erupted. Guests whispered in scandalized tones, some rising from their seats, others pulling out their cell phones. Mrs. Fairbanks rushed to the altar, her face red with humiliation. "Lucy, honey, what is going on? You can't do this." Raphael tried to grab her arm, his face contorted with fury. "You're going to humiliate me like this, in front of everyone, after everything we've built together?" "Raphael, please, try to understand." Lucy pulled away, tears beginning to stream down her face. "I can't live a lie. I can't pretend I don't feel like something is wrong between us." It was at that moment that Adrian acted. Seeing Lucy surrounded by chaos, alone in the center of the storm she herself had created, something inside him broke. All the years of silence, of guarded pain, of suffocated love, transformed into a desperate courage. He approached Lucy, who was being pressured from all sides. Without a word, he took off his own jacket and placed it over her shoulders, shielding her from the judgmental gazes. Then, to the absolute shock of everyone present, Adrian Montgomery knelt before her. "Lucy." His voice was hoarse with contained emotion. "I love you. I've always loved you. If you give me a chance, if you want to marry me, now here." The silence that followed was even deeper than the previous one. Raphael was gaping, unable to process what he had just heard. "Adrian, have you lost your mind?" "She's my fiancée." "Not anymore," Adrian replied, his eyes never leaving Lucy's face. "She just said she can't marry you, and I can't pretend I don't love her anymore." Lucy looked at him as if she were seeing him for the first time. There was the man who had always been kind and respectful to her, who greeted her politely, at social gatherings, who had never shown interest beyond courtesy. But now, kneeling before her, his eyes revealed years of silent love and contained pain. "Adrian, she stammered, tears clouding her vision. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he whispered, rising slowly. "Give me a chance to prove that. You deserve to be loved truly, completely, without doubts." Raphael exploded in fury. "She's an opportunist. She's doing this on purpose. You planned everything." He pointed his finger accusingly at both of them. "My best friend betraying me with my fiancée." "It wasn't planned," Adrian said with deadly calm. "I never touched her, never said a word about my feelings. But I'm not going to pass up this opportunity to finally be honest." Raphael's family approached, furious. His father, a powerful CEO in the food industry, growled threats. "You'll pay for this humiliation. No one does this to the Carvalhos." On the other side, Adrian's parents watched the scene with horror. Mrs. Eleanor Montgomery, matriarch of one of the most established families in New York, was livid. "Adrian, you've lost your senses. This woman has bewitched you. She abandoned a groom at the altar and you want to marry her." "I do," Adrian replied without hesitation. "And I will." Lucy felt like she was in the eye of the storm. Part of her wanted to run, to disappear from that impossible situation. But there was something in Adrian's eyes, a deep sincerity that she had never seen in Raphael, that made her hesitate. Throughout those years, she had noticed his respectful attention, the way he listened to her when she spoke, how his eyes followed her. Discreetly at social gatherings, she had always thought it was just courtesy. "I need time to think," she murmured. "There is no time," Raphael shouted. "Either you marry me now as planned, or it's over between us forever." Adrian turned to Raphael with a coldness that few knew. "The decision is hers, not yours. And from the looks of it, she's already decided." The tension in the air was palpable. Powerful families were facing off, reputations were at stake, fortunes threatened by scandal. The society press was already beginning to speculate about the biggest matrimonial scandal of the decade. Lucy looked one last time at Raphael, seeing in him not the man she had loved, but a stranger consumed by anger and wounded pride. Then she turned to Adrian, the man who had just opened his heart before everyone, risking everything for her. "Okay," she whispered, so low that only he heard. "Okay." Adrian gently wrapped his arm around her, protecting her from the enraged crowd. They left the church amidst shouts of indignation, flashes of cameras, and veiled threats. Outside, Adrian's driver was waiting for them with the car already running. "Where to, sir?" the man asked, clearly disturbed by the situation. "Home," Adrian replied, helping Lucy into the vehicle. "And call my lawyer. We have a wedding to organize. Today." As they drove away from the church, Lucy realized the magnitude of what had just happened. She had abandoned her previous life in a matter of minutes, entrusting it to the hands of a man who, despite knowing for years, was practically a stranger to her. And the most terrifying thing of all was that, for the first time in months, she felt at peace with her decision. But behind them, Rafael Carvalho swore revenge, and two powerful families were preparing for a war that would shake the foundations of high society in New York. Adrian*S mansion in the Upper East Side was a sanctuary of understated elegance. Lucy found herself in a world completely different from the cozy apartment she shared with Raphael. Here, each piece of furniture told a story of good taste and generational wealth, but there was something curiously empty in the perfection of those rooms. "You must be exhausted," Adrian said gently, leading her through the entrance hall adorned with Italian marble. He had shed the formal tuxedo, but still maintained a respectful, almost reverent demeanor. "I've prepared the master suite for you. I'll stay in the study." Lucy watched him with a mixture of gratitude and bewilderment. In the last 3 hours since they left the church, Adrian had handled every detail with impressive efficiency. His lawyer had obtained a special marriage license. A friendly judge had agreed to perform a private civil ceremony, and now she was officially Mrs. Montgomery. It all seemed like a strange and surreal dream. "Adrian," she began, hesitant, "why did you do this? Not just today, but why did you keep those feelings for so long?" He stopped in the middle of the marble staircase, his hands tightening slightly on the banister. For a moment, she saw a deep vulnerability cross his normally controlled face. "Because you were his," he replied simply. "And I'm not the kind of man who takes something from a friend." He looked her in the eyes. "But today, when you said you couldn't marry him, I realized that maybe you had never really been his." In the days that followed, a strange routine settled in. Adrian left early for work, always leaving a delicate note asking about her needs. Lucy explored the immense house, discovering a magnificent library, carefully planned gardens, and an art studio that seemed abandoned for years. It was in this studio that she found herself on Thursday afternoon when Adrian arrived home early from work. She was standing in front of a half-finished canvas, a portrait of a dark-haired woman she didn't recognize. "You paint?" she said, not as a question, but as a discovery. Adrian became visibly tense upon seeing her there. "I used to," he corrected, approaching cautiously. "A long time ago." "Who is she?" Lucy pointed to the unfinished canvas. There was something in the expression of the woman portrayed, a deep melancholy that echoed in Adrian's own gaze. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then, in a voice filled with an old pain, he murmured, "Isabella. Isabella. My first wife." Lucy turned completely to face him, the shock evident on her face. "You were married? Raphael never mentioned—" "Because I asked him not to." Adrian approached the canvas, his fingers touching the frame lightly. "We got married when I was 25. She was 23. It was a marriage arranged by our families, but it grew into something real. At least on my part." Lucy felt a pang of something she couldn't identify. Jealousy, curiosity, compassion. What happened to her? The silence stretched so long that she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was almost a whisper. "She left me. 3 days after our second wedding anniversary, I found a note saying she couldn't live a lie anymore, that she loved another man and was leaving with him for Europe." Adrian closed his eyes. "I found out later that she had been having an affair for months with someone I considered a friend." The betrayal in his voice was palpable, and Lucy felt her heart clench. Now she understood his caution, the almost reverent way he treated her, as if she were made of crystal and could break at any moment. "Adrian, I'm so sorry. Since then, I never allowed myself to feel this." He gestured vaguely between them. "Until you." "Why me?" He looked at her with an intensity that made her feel as if he could see directly into her soul. "Because you were different. The first time I saw you at that art gallery, you were arguing with Raphael about a painting. You said that true art should make you feel something, even if it's uncomfortable. That beauty without purpose is empty." He smiled sadly. "It was the first time in years that I felt someone understood how I saw the world." Lucy vaguely remembered that night, years ago. She remembered Adrian as a silent and elegant presence, but not the specific conversation. "Throughout those years," he continued, "I watched you. The way you laughed at Raphael's bad jokes, how you genuinely cared about the people around you, how you talked about your dreams of working with underprivileged children." His voice grew lower. "You had a light that I thought I had lost forever. And that's why you never said anything? because you seemed happy with him. And after Isabella's betrayal, I promised myself I would never be the kind of man who destroys someone's happiness." He paused, looking directly at her. "But today, when you said you couldn't marry him, I realized that maybe you weren't really happy." Lucy felt tears stinging her eyes. For years, she had felt that something was missing in her relationship with Raphael, but had always attributed it to the natural differences between couples. Now, seeing the contained passion in Adrian's eyes, she was beginning to understand what it was like to be with someone who truly saw her. "Isabella was wrong," she said softly, approaching him, "in leaving you. Maybe. Or maybe I wasn't enough for her." The vulnerability in his voice moved her deeply. Without thinking, Lucy touched his face, feeling the stubble under her hands. "You are more than enough, Adrian. Any woman would be lucky to be loved by you." For a moment they stood there, suspended in time, the connection between them deepening. Adrian covered her hand with his, closing his eyes as if he wanted to memorize that touch. But then his cell phone rang, breaking the spell. It was his assistant, with news that would make both their blood run cold. "Mr. Montgomery," the tense voice echoed through the speakerphone, "I need to warn you. Rafael Carvalho gave an interview to Vanity Fair magazine. The article will be out tomorrow. He's saying very serious things about Mrs. Montgomery and about you." Asterisk. Asterisk morning arrived with the fury of a storm. Lucy woke up to the sound of raised voices coming from downstairs and the incessant ringing of telephones. When she went down, she found Adrian in the study, surrounded by piles of newspapers and magazines, his face tense as he spoke on the phone with his lawyers. The wedding of shame, how an opportunist and a traitor shocked New York's elite. He read aloud the title of the Vanity Fair article when he saw her at the door. His eyes were red with fatigue. It was obvious he hadn't slept. Lucy approached, picking up one of the magazines with trembling hands. The cover photo showed a moment someone had captured at the church, Adrian kneeling before her with an expression of desperate pleading. The headline was even worse than she had imagined. "Luciana Fairbanks has always been a calculating gold digger." She read Raphael's words aloud. "She planned everything with my best friend behind my back. Adrian Montgomery took advantage of my trust and seduced my fiancée, probably offering her the life of luxury I could never give. She traded true love for a bank account." "There's more," Adrian said in a dangerously calm voice. "He claims you had an affair for months, that you were just waiting for an opportunity to humiliate him publicly." Lucy felt nausea rising in her throat. "How can he lie like that? We barely talked alone before yesterday." "The truth doesn't matter now," Adrian replied, hanging up the phone. "What matters is that half of New York believes these lies, and the other half is speculating about even worse versions of the story." Lucy's phone started ringing, insistently. It was her best friend, Sarah, her voice filled with concern. "Lucy, you need to know that they're saying terrible things about you on social media. People are posting that you've always been a gold digger, that you've had your eye on Adrian's fortune for years." Asterisk. Before she could answer, the doorbell of the mansion rang insistently. Through the window, they saw a crowd of reporters and photographers surrounding the gate. Flashes went off constantly. Drones hovered over the property. "Mr. Montgomery, do you confirm that your wife was a long-time mistress?" shouted one reporter. "Lucy, how does it feel to be called a gold digger?" Adrian slammed the curtains shut. "My lawyer said it's best if we don't go out for a few days until things calm down." But things only got worse. During the afternoon, Mrs. Eleanor Montgomery arrived accompanied by other members of the established family, including Adrian's father, Dr. Edward Montgomery, a respected patriarch of New York medicine. "Adrian, this has gone too far," Mrs. Montgomery said without even greeting Lucy. "You need to annul this ridiculous marriage before our family is completely destroyed." "My decision has already been made, Mother." "Your decision?" Dr. Edward stood up, his voice thundering. "What kind of decision is it to marry a woman who abandoned another man at the altar? A woman who everyone is talking about as if she were, Watch your words, Father," Adrian interrupted, his voice low but threatening. "Adrian, be reasonable," Mrs. Montgomery continued. "This woman clearly manipulated you. You've always been vulnerable to pretty faces since Isabella." The name fell like a bomb in the room. Lucy saw Adrian stiffen completely. "Don't mention Isabella," he said with a deadly coldness. "I need to mention it, yes. You're repeating the same mistake, falling in love with women who only want to take advantage of you." It was at that moment that something broke inside Adrian. For years, he had endured the subtle criticisms of his family, the insinuations that he wasn't good enough, that his choices were always wrong. But hearing his mother compare Lucy to Isabella, seeing the contempt in their eyes directed at the woman he loved, was beyond what he could bear. "Enough!" he exploded, rising abruptly. "Lucy is my wife, and I won't allow anyone, not even you, to disrespect her in my house." "Adrian." Lucy tried to touch him, but he was trembling with anger. "You want to know the truth," he continued, looking directly at his parents. "I've loved this woman for 5 years suffering in silence, seeing her with another man, wishing I had the courage to say what I felt. And when I finally had that chance, when she freed herself from a relationship that obviously wasn't making her happy, I asked her to marry me because it was my only opportunity to finally be honest about my feelings." Mrs. Montgomery was livid. "You're admitting you desired your best friend's fiancé." "I'm admitting that I love my wife more than anything in this world, and if you can't accept that, then maybe it's best if you leave my house." "Dune." The silence that followed was glacial. Dr. Edward looked at his son as if he were seeing him for the first time and didn't like what he saw. "Very well," he said finally. "If that's how you want things, Adrian, then so be it. But don't count on us when this farce collapses." After they left, Lucy found Adrian on the terrace, his hands resting on the railing, looking at the garden without really seeing it. The vulnerability in his posture moved her deeply. "You didn't need to do that," she said softly, approaching. "You didn't need to choose between me and your family." "Yes, I did." He turned to her, and for the first time since they met, she saw unshed tears in his eyes. "Because for the first time in my life, I chose what I wanted, not what was expected of me." At that moment, something fundamental changed between them. Lucy saw not the powerful tycoon that everyone knew, but a man who had risked everything, his family, his reputation, his social position, for her. And she realized that regardless of how it all started, what she felt for him now was real and frighteningly intense. She approached him, placing her hands on his face, forcing him to look at her. "Adrian, But before she could finish, his phone rang again. This time, it was something that would make both of them realize that their battles so far had only been the warm-up for the real war that was to come. "Mr. Montgomery," the tense voice of his head of security echoed through the phone. "We have a problem. Rafael Carvalho has just filed a lawsuit against you and Mrs. Montgomery. He's alleging that you conspired to humiliate him publicly and is seeking compensation for moral damages in the amount of $50 million. And there's more. He obtained a court order to freeze some of your assets until the lawsuit is resolved." The war had officially begun. ******. The following days turned into a calculated nightmare. Adrian had to deal with lawyers, tax auditors, and a press hungry for every sordid detail they could invent about his marriage. But it was on Monday a week after the initial scandal, that the true extent of Raphael's revenge was revealed. Lucy was in the library when she heard Adrian talking on the phone in the study, his voice more tense than she had ever heard. She approached the ajar door, not intending to eavesdrop, but worried about the serious tone of the conversation. "How long do we have?" he asked. "No, that can't leak if that gets to the press." And there was a long pause. "Do whatever it takes to keep it secret, at any cost." When he hung up, Lucy knocked lightly on the door. "Adrian, is everything all right?" He looked up at her, and what she saw frightened her. There was a hopelessness there that she had never witnessed. "Raphael found out about the Santa Clara Foundation project," he said simply. Lucy frowned. She had never heard of this project. "What is the Santa Clara Foundation?" Adrian sighed heavily, running his hands through his hair. "It's a personal project of mine. 3 years ago, I started building an educational complex in the Bronx. Schools, a library, a medical center, all funded anonymously through shell corporations." He looked at her. "The project has cost almost $200 million so far." "Why in secret?" "Because." He hesitated, as if he were about to reveal something deeply intimate. "Because I grew up there in the Bronx." Lucy stared at him, shocked. "You grew up in the projects?" "My father isn't my biological father," Adrian continued, his voice filled with an old pain. "My mother was a maid in the Montgomery house. She got pregnant with me at 16. I never knew who my real father was. Dr. Edward married her when I was 2 years old and adopted me, but it was always more out of obligation than out of love." The revelation left her speechless. Asterisk. Throughout those years, Adrian had carried this secret, living as the heir of an established family, when in reality he was a kid from the projects. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Raphael found out, and he's threatening to make public not only my origins, but also the Santa Clara Foundation." Adrian's voice was filled with a cold fury. "He knows that if this leaks, not only will my reputation be destroyed, but hundreds of children who depend on the project will be harmed. The established families that finance my companies will walk away. Government contracts will be cancelled." "But that's wonderful, Adrian. Why would you be ashamed of helping those children?" "I'm not ashamed of the project," he replied bitterly. "I'm afraid of the consequences. The New York elite doesn't forgive those who pretend to be something they're not. If they find out that the tycoon Adrian Montgomery is actually the bastard, son of a maid, who built his fortune by lying about his origins." Lucy approached him, finally understanding the depth of his pain. "And what does Raphael want in exchange for his silence?" "You." The word fell between them like a blade. Lucy felt the air leave her lungs. "He wants me to annul our marriage, and for you to go back to him, publicly, with a statement saying that you realized your mistake and that I manipulated you." Adrian couldn't look her in the eyes. "In exchange, he promises to keep my origin and the foundation a secret. And if we refuse, he has documents, photos, records. He's already prepared everything for a full exposé. He said he'll ruin not only my reputation, but make sure that none of the children in the project receive any more help." Lucy felt tears of anger burning her eyes. "He's using underprivileged children as blackmail?" "Exactly." Adrian's voice was broken. "And the worst part is, he's right about one thing. If this leaks, I'll lose everything. The contracts, the investors, the credibility. And without the company's resources, I can't keep the foundation running." At that moment, Lucy understood the true dimension of the sacrifice Adrian had made. For her, he hadn't risked just his social position. He had risked his life's mission, his deepest purpose. "How many children?" she asked softly. 850 currently. But the project was planned to serve over 3,000 when it's complete. Lucy closed her eyes, feeling the weight of that responsibility. 850 children who depended on the man she was learning to love. 3,000 futures that could be destroyed because of her. There's something else, Adrian continued, reluctant. Raphael isn't acting alone. He has the support of the Carvalho family, who have powerful political connections, and my own parents are collaborating with him. Your parents? Mrs. Eleanor always knew about my origin. She was the one who suggested it be kept secret. Now she sees this as an opportunity to force me to come to my senses and annul our marriage. Adrian finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was almost unbearable. They're willing to destroy me to keep you away from me. Adrian's phone rang again. It was his lawyer with more devastating news. Mr. Montgomery, Raphael Carvalho just upped the ante. He leaked to some society columnists that he has explosive information about you that will be revealed soon. Montgomery Construction shares fell 20% today alone. And there are rumors that he's trying to influence your government clients. Lucy watched Adrian hang up the phone with trembling hands. At that moment, she made a decision that would break both their hearts, but that she knew was necessary. Adrian, she said softly, I'm going back to Raphael. He looked at her as if he had been shot. Lucy, no. I can't let 850 children pay for my misjudgment. I can't let your life be destroyed because of me. It wasn't your fault, it was my choice, and now it's my choice too. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice was firm. I love you, Adrian. I love you more than I ever thought it was possible to love someone. But that's exactly why I can't let you lose everything you've built. Lucy, please, no. She stepped away before he could touch her, knowing that if he did, her determination would crumble. I'm going to call Raphael now. I'm going to say I accept his terms. And then, Lucy looked at him one last time, memorizing every detail of his face, knowing that this would probably be the last time she would see him like this. Vulnerable, in love, her Adrian. Then, you're going to continue your project. You're going to help those children, and you're going to find someone who can love you without putting everything you've built at risk. But as she dialed Raphael's number with trembling hands, neither of them knew that the real battle was just beginning. *******. The call to Raphael lasted only 3 minutes, but they were the 3 most devastating minutes of Lucy's life. Her voice trembled as she said the words he wanted to hear, that she had made a mistake, that she realized she had been manipulated, that she wanted to go back to him. I knew you'd come to your senses. Raphael's voice was cruel, triumphant. I always knew this charade wouldn't last long. Meet me tomorrow at the Plaza Hotel. We'll hold a press conference at 2 p.m. You'll say exactly what we agreed on. When she hung up, Adrian was standing in the doorway, having heard every word. The look he gave her shattered her. It wasn't anger, but a deep resignation, as if a part of him had died in that moment. So this is how it ends, he said in a voice so low that she could barely hear him. With you choosing him again. Adrian, you know that's not it. Do I? He approached her, and for the first time since they met, there was something dangerous in his eyes. Because from where I'm standing, that's exactly what it looks like. You're running back into the arms of the man who publicly humiliated you. I'm saving your life, your work, those children. I didn't ask to be saved, Lucy. I asked to be loved. The pain in his voice made her stagger, but she forced herself to remain firm. And I do love you. That's why I'm doing this. Liar. The word came out like a gunshot. If you really love me, you would stay and fight with me, but you're running away as you always have, as you did at the altar with Raphael, as you're doing now with me. The accusation hit her like a slap. "That's not fair, Adrian." "Fair?" he laughed, a bitter sound she had never heard before. "You know what's not fair? Me having spent 5 years loving you in silence, having risked everything for you, having lost my family, my reputation, everything, only to find out that when things get tough, you runs to the first man who offers an easy way out." Each word was a stab, especially because Lucy knew there was a grain of painful truth in them. She had run from the altar with Raphael, and now she was running from Adrian too. But this time, she tried to convince herself that she was running for a noble reason. "You don't understand," she began. "I understand perfectly." Adrian stepped away from her, his voice returning to that formerly cold tone that she hated. "I understand that you're exactly like Isabella. When the situation gets complicated, when you have to fight for something, you abandon ship." The comparison to Isabella was like a punch to the stomach. Lucy knew that he was hurt, that he was speaking from pain, but the words found their target with surgical precision. "I'm not like her," Lucy whispered, tears finally beginning to fall. "No? Then, prove it, stay, fight with me." For a moment she hesitated. She saw the man she loved begging with his eyes for her to choose to stay, to face together anything that came their way. But then she remembered the 850 children, his life's project, everything that would be destroyed. "I can't," she whispered. Adrian nodded slowly, as if a terrible suspicion had been confirmed. "Then we have nothing more to talk about." He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "Just one last thing, Lucy. When you find out who Raphael really is, and you will find out, don't come looking for me. Because this time, there will be no turning back." That night, Lucy packed her bags alone. Adrian had left without saying where he was going, and she knew that it was better that way. Leaving a note seemed inadequate after everything they had lived through, but she also couldn't bear the idea of saying goodbye in person. The next morning, she was in the lobby of the Plaza Hotel when her phone rang. It was Sarah, her best friend, her voice filled with urgency. "Lucy, you need to see the news, now." "What happened?" "Raphael. He didn't wait for the press conference. He leaked everything about Adrian in the middle of the night." Lucy's world crumbled. She turned on the television in the room and watched, horrified as all of Adrian's secrets were exposed rawly in the media. His humble origins, the true identity of his mother, the Santa Clara Foundation, everything was distorted and presented as an elaborate hoax. "Tycoon Adrian Montgomery has deceived New York's elite for decades," said the presenter. "Born in the projects, the son of a maid, he built an empire based on lies about his origins. And even more shocking, he used money from investors to finance personal projects in the neighborhood where he grew up, presenting them as charity when in fact they were attempts to clear his conscience." Lucy ran to the bathroom and vomited. Raphael had betrayed their agreement. He had promised silence in exchange for her return, but had revealed everything anyway, knowing that it would destroy Adrian completely. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, curious onlookers, people wanting to know her version of the story, but it was one specific call that made her tremble with fear. "Lucy!" It was Adrian's choked voice. "Did you see?" "Adrian, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he played me from the beginning," Adrian interrupted, his voice sounding strangely calm for someone who had lost everything. "He never intended to keep the agreement. He just wanted to make sure you were out of my life before destroying me completely." "Where are you?" "At the foundation with the children." There was a long pause. "The investors have already started canceling their contracts. The politicians are backing away. In a week, maybe 2, there won't be any more money to keep the project running." Lucy felt like she was drowning. "Adrian, this is my fault. I should..." have stayed, I should have fought. No. His voice was firm, but she could hear the pain beneath the forced calm. You made your choice. And now I've made mine. I'm going to sell everything I have to keep the foundation running for as long as possible. And then I'm leaving New York, starting over somewhere where no one knows the story of the fraudulent tycoon. Adrian, don't do that. Don't give up on everything. Like you didn't give up on me? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Lucy had no answer for it. Take care of yourself, Lucy, Adrian said finally, and when you marry Raphael again, because I know that's what he wants, remember that some people are capable of destroying everything they touch. I hope you don't. Find that out too late. The call ended, and Lucy collapsed on the floor of the hotel room, sobbing. She had lost the man she loved. She had failed to protect him, and now Raphael had everything he wanted, her back and Adrian completely destroyed. 2 hours later, at the press conference, she heard herself saying the words that Raphael had prepared. You're for her. She spoke about manipulation, about how she had been deceived, about how she thanked Raphael for saving her from the mistake she had made. But as the cameras rolled and the journalists asked their questions, a part of Lucy died inside, because she knew that she had just betrayed not only the man she loved, but also herself. And somewhere in the city, Adrian Montgomery, the poor kid who had become a tycoon, who had dedicated his fortune to helping children like he had been, who had risked everything for love, watched his life crumble completely, knowing that the woman for whom he had sacrificed everything had chosen the man who had destroyed him. 3 weeks had passed since the press conference that had shattered Adrian's life, and Lucy felt like a ghost wandering through her own existence. Raphael had insisted that they move back in together to keep up appearances, but each day by his side was a silent torture. She was in the kitchen of the apartment she had once called home when she heard Raphael talking on the phone in the study, his voice filled with a cruel satisfaction that made her stop breathing. Yes, Dad, everything went perfectly. Adrian is completely finished. Montgomery's shares have plummeted so much that negotiations for bankruptcy have already begun. He laughed, a sound that chilled her blood. And the best part is, we got the Santa Clara Foundation contracts for a fraction of the original price. We're going to tear down that whole neighborhood and build a shopping mall. Lucy felt nausea rising in her throat. What shopping mall? She asked, entering the study. Raphael turned around, startled, quickly hanging up the phone. Lucy, I didn't hear you coming. What's this story about a shopping mall, Raphael? Nothing much, just business. He tried to kiss her, but she pulled away. You said they were going to tear down the foundation. That was always an unviable project, Raphael replied with disdain. Adrian threw money away trying to save slum or dwellers. We're going to give that area a real use. Real use? Lucy felt a cold rage spreading through her chest. 850 children study there, Raphael. Entire families depend on the medical services of the foundation. And what problem is that of ours? Poverty has always existed. It will always exist. We can't save everyone. At that moment, Lucy saw Raphael as she had never seen him before. Not the charming man who had courted her for years, but a calculating predator who saw people as pieces in a chess game. Why did you do this? She asked, her voice trembling. Why did you destroy Adrian? He was your best friend. Friend? Raphael laughed bitterly. Adrian always had everything I wanted. The fortune, the respect, women falling at his feet. And when I found out he was in love with you, well, it was the perfect opportunity to destroy him and get you back at the same time. You always knew about his feelings. Of course I knew. You think you were subtle, but I saw how he looked at you, how he tensed up when I touched you in front of him. Raphael approached her, a cruel smile on his face. You know, what the most delicious part of all this was? Seeing you actually fall in love with each other, because it made the revenge so much sweeter. Lucy recoiled, horrified. Revenge? Revenge for what? For years of being second best, for always living in the shadow of the perfect tycoon. Raphael's mask had finally fallen completely. You think I didn't know you didn't really love me? That you were with me out of convenience? But it didn't matter, because I knew that one day you would be useful to destroy Adrian. The revelation hit her like lightning. You dated me for 5 years just to use against Adrian. In the beginning, maybe. But then I got used to you. And when I saw you two together that day at the church, I realized I could have both. My revenge against him and you back. Lucy felt like she was seeing a stranger. Throughout those years, Raphael had lied, manipulated, planned the destruction of his best friend, using her as bait. The doubts I felt before the wedding, she murmured, the pieces falling into place. I knew. Subconsciously, I knew something was wrong. Now you know the truth, Raphael said, returning to his chair as if nothing had happened. And you're going to stay here because you have nowhere else to go. Adrian is finished, your reputation destroyed. Who else would want you now? Lucy looked at him with crystal clarity. Anyone would be better than you. She left the apartment without taking anything but her purse, ignoring Raphael shouting after her. She needed to find Adrian, ask for forgiveness, try to fix what had been broken. But when she arrived at the mansion in the Upper East Side, she found only employees packing the last of the furniture. The house has been sold, ma'am, explained the butler who knew her from the time she lived there. Mr. Adrian moved out a week ago. Where to? I don't know, ma'am. He didn't leave an address. Desperate, Lucy went to the headquarters of Montgomery Construction, but the building was empty, with auction notices pasted on the doors. She tried to call Adrian's cell phone, but found that the number was disconnected. That's when she remembered the Santa Clara Foundation. If there was one place where Adrian might be, it would be there, with the children he loved so much. The trip to the Bronx took almost 2 hours. When she finally arrived at the foundation, she found a devastating scene. The complex was operating, with minimal resources, many rooms empty, equipment being removed. "You're his woman," said a voice behind her. Lucy turned and saw a woman of about 50, dressed simply but with intelligent and determined eyes. "I'm Mrs. Carmen, the pedagogical coordinator of the foundation," the woman introduced herself, "and director of the school where the boy Adrian studied, more than 20 years ago." "You've known him since he was a child?" "I have. I saw when he left here, promising that he would come back to help, and he kept his promise." Mrs. Carmen looked around sadly. "Until you appeared. I didn't want this to happen. But it happened, and now 850 children will lose the only chance they had for a better future." Guilt was like a stone in Lucy's chest. "Where is he? I need to talk to him." "I don't know. He showed up here a week ago, said goodbye to the children, and said he was leaving, that he couldn't help anymore." Mrs. Carmen studied her with piercing eyes. "But he left something for you." She led Lucy to a small room where there was a single canvas, the unfinished portrait of Isabella that Lucy had seen in the studio. But now the painting was complete, and the woman's face had been painted over with new colors, transforming into something completely different. It was Lucy's face. "He spent 3 days painting this," Mrs. Carmen explained. "He said he needed to finish what he had started years ago, that you were the only woman who had managed to erase Isabella from his heart." Lucy touched the canvas with trembling fingers, seeing how Adrian had painted her, not idealized, but real, with all the imperfections that made her who she was. There was so much love in that painting that she almost couldn't breathe. "He still loves me," she whispered, Of course he loves you, but love isn't enough when there's no trust, Mrs. Carmen replied harshly. He told me what you did, how you chose Raphael instead of fighting by his side. I was trying to protect him. You were running away, as you always have. The older woman had no pity in her voice. Adrian told me everything, about how you ran from the altar, about how you ran from him too. You're not the woman for him. Girl, he needs someone who will fight by his side, not someone who runs at the first difficulty. The words were cruel, but Lucy knew they were true. Throughout her life, she had run away from conflicts, from difficult decisions, from responsibilities that required real courage. But what if I wanted to change? She asked, surprising herself. What if I wanted to fight for him this time? Mrs. Carmen studied her for a long moment. Then you would have to prove it. Not to me, not to him, but to yourself. Because if you're going to give up at the first difficulty again, it's better to leave the man alone. Lucy looked one last time at the portrait, making a decision that would change everything. Where can I find the documents about the sale of the foundation to the Carvalho family? Why do you want to know? Because I'm going to stop it from happening. I'm going to expose Raphael for who he really is, and I'm going to find a way to save this place. For the first time in weeks, Lucy felt a flame of determination igniting in her chest. Even if it means facing the most powerful families in New York, Mrs. Carmen smiled for the first time since they met. Now you're starting to talk like a woman worthy of his love. But neither of them knew that Raphael was already preparing his next move, and that the real battle was just beginning. Lucy spent the next 3 days immersed in documents, contracts, and financial records that Mrs. Carmen obtained through her contacts in City Hall. What she discovered left her stunned. The Carvalho family had not only orchestrated Adrian's downfall, but was involved in a corruption scheme that included overbilling in public works and money laundering through fictitious social projects. They used the foundation as a smokescreen, she explained to Sarah, who had become her only ally in this impossible battle. While Adrian was building a real project, they created ghost organizations to divert public funds. Lucy, this is dangerous. If they find out you know... I don't care anymore, Lucy interrupted, a steely determination in her voice. They destroyed Adrian's life. They're about to displace hundreds of families, and I was the useful idiot who allowed it to happen. It was then that her phone rang. It was an unknown number. Lucy, the familiar voice made her heart stop. It's me, Adrian. Adrian, where are you? I need to talk to you. I need to explain. I know about Raphael, he interrupted her gently. I know that you found out the truth about him. How do you know? Because for 3 days, I've been investigating the same thing as you. Mrs. Carmen told me that you were at the foundation, that you were trying to find evidence against the Carvalhos. There was a pause. Lucy, you can't do this alone. It's too dangerous. Where are you? She asked again. In my new apartment. It's small, nothing like the mansion, but... He gave her the address. Come over, we need to talk. The apartment was in a middle-class neighborhood, simple but cozy. When Adrian opened the door, Lucy almost didn't recognize him. He had lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, but there was something different in his eyes, a peace that she hadn't seen in a long time. You seem... well, she said hesitantly. I'm better than I expected, he admitted, leading her to the small living room. Losing everything forced me to remember who I really am. Not the tycoon, not the Montgomery heir, but just Adrian, the boy who grew up in the Bronx dreaming of making a difference. Adrian, about what happened, about how I... You did what you thought was right, he interrupted her. And I said horrible things when you left. I compared you to Isabella, and that was unfair. Isabella betrayed me out of selfishness. You left me trying to protect me. Lucy felt tears burning her eyes. But I was wrong. I should have stayed and fought by your side. Maybe we needed to go through this to discover who we really are. Adrian approached her, but still maintaining a respectful distance. Lucy, I still love you. I never stopped loving you. But before we can think about us, we need to finish what Raphael started. How? Adrian smiled for the first time since she arrived. It turns out that a poor boy from the Bronx learns to survive on the streets, and I never forgot those lessons. He picked up a folder full of documents. While you were investigating the Carvalhos, I was investigating Raphael, and I discovered something interesting. He spread photos and documents on the table. Raphael isn't acting alone. He has a silent partner in all these transactions, someone who knows the system from the inside, who has access to privileged information. Lucy examined the papers and felt her blood run cold. Dr. Edward, your adoptive father? Exactly. My dear father decided that if he couldn't control me, he would at least profit from my downfall. Adrian's voice was filled with a deep bitterness. He provided confidential information about my business to Raphael, helped orchestrate the whole destruction. Adrian, this must be breaking your heart. It did, but it also freed me. He looked her directly in the eyes. Throughout my life, I tried to be worthy of the Montgomery name. I tried to prove that I deserved to be part of that family. Now I know that I never needed their approval. What are we going to do? We're going to expose them, all of them. Raphael, my father, the whole corruption network. Adrian picked up a digital recorder. I got Raphael confessing about the scheme. He doesn't know I was recording. Lucy looked at him with admiration. How did you do that? I set up a meeting with him, said I wanted to make a deal, that I was willing to leave the country in exchange for a payment to keep silent. Adrian smiled bitterly. He couldn't resist the opportunity to rub in my face how he had destroyed me. He told me everything, the scheme with my father, the plans for the foundation, how he used you throughout those years. And now we go to the press, but not alone. Adrian picked up the phone. I have a contact at the district attorney's office. She's been investigating irregularities in public contracts in the city for months. With this evidence, she can open a formal investigation. The next hours passed like a hurricane. The prosecutor, Miss Helen Martinez, examined all the evidence, confirmed that there was enough material for a police operation. Meanwhile, Lucy and Adrian worked side by side, organizing documents, preparing depositions. Why are you doing this? Adrian asked in a moment of silence. You could simply walk away, start a new life away from all this mess. Because I finally understood something, Lucy replied, gently touching his face. Throughout my life, I ran away from problems, from difficult responsibilities. But you taught me that some things are worth fighting for. And you are worth fighting for. Adrian covered her hand with his. Lucy, even if we manage to expose Raphael and save the foundation, we can't go back to what we were. I've lost almost everything. I no longer have the fortune, the social position. You have something much more valuable, she interrupted him. You have a heart that cares about 850 children more than your own reputation. You have the courage to start over from scratch at 37 years old. You have a love so deep that you were able to forgive me when I didn't deserve forgiveness. And what do you want from the future? Lucy looked around the simple apartment, thinking of the luxurious mansion she had left behind. I want to work at the foundation. I want to help those children. I want to build something real by your side, not a life based on appearances and social status. Even if it means giving up comfort, privileges, especially for that. She approached him, placing her hands on his chest. "Adrian, I love you. Asterisk, not the tycoon, not the Montgomery heir, but you, the man who grew up in the projects and never forgot where he came from, the man who uses his strength to protect the weakest." He wrapped her in his arms, finally allowing. "Hope to return to her heart. Then let's finish this story together." The police operation took place the next morning. Raphael was arrested red-handed, receiving a bribe from a construction company. Dr. Edward was detained in his office, surrounded by documents proving his participation in the scheme. The press covered everything live: the fall of the corruption empire that had destroyed one of the city's biggest social projects. 3 months later, Lucy walked through the halls of the Santa Clara Foundation, now completely restored and operating with resources obtained through a crowdfunding campaign that raised over $100 million after the true story was revealed. Teacher Lucy, a 6-year-old girl, ran up to her, hugging her legs. "Look at the drawing I made for Uncle Adrian." The drawing showed a man in a suit helping children build a giant school. At the top, written in crooked letters, "Thank you for not giving up on us." Lucy found Adrian in the library, surrounded by teenagers who listened to him attentively as he explained architectural concepts. He had created a vocational course for the young people of the community, teaching them trades that could guarantee a better future. "So, class, who can tell me what's the most important material in any construction?" he asked. "Cement," shouted one boy. "Steel," said another. Adrian smiled, looking directly at Lucy. "No, the most important material is the foundation. A solid foundation, built with love and dedication, can withstand any storm." Later, when the children had already left, they walked together through the foundation's garden. Adrian had managed to rebuild part of his business, but now focused on social projects and building affordable housing. He was a different man, lighter, happier, more connected with himself. "You know what I learned from all this?" Lucy said, stopping in front of the mural that the children had painted on the main wall. "I learned that true love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be a better person." "And you make me want to be better every day," Adrian replied, wrapping her in his arms. "Thank you for fighting, for us, for staying when things got tough. Thank you for giving me a second chance, for teaching me that running away never solves anything." They kissed under the golden light of the sunset, while around them the sound of children's laughter echoed through the foundation's halls. They had lost a life of luxury and privilege, but gained something infinitely more valuable: a life with purpose, built on a solid foundation of true love and mutual commitment. And when, 6 months later, they remarried in the small chapel of the foundation, surrounded by 850 children who considered them heroes, both knew that they had finally found the place where they belonged. Not in the halls of New York's elite, but there, in the middle of the community they had helped to transform, building a better future together, brick by brick, dream by dream. The poor boy from the Bronx and the woman who learned to fight for her dreams had found finally their happy ending.